The bases dropped on a bright Friday morning in Atlanta, Georgia. Soccer Down Here is live for July 12th. I'm sure you have thoughts. I mean, this was borderline an overreaction Friday edition, or an after-school very special episode edition, but it is lots to talk about on a Friday. Atlanta United will be speaking to the media, and I'm sure people will be waiting to see what is said. I think it's going to come either at the very end of our show or after we're off the air, so we'll keep you posted as best we can. There were some comments made. There were some comments that became public yesterday, let's put it that way, because I'm not 100% sure when the interview was conducted. There have been a few questions about that, but Fox Sports Argentina spoke to Pity Martinez, and he had quite a few different things to say. What initially started making the rounds was, of course, a quote taken out of its full context. No real shock there. About if it was up to Pity, he would still be at River. Look, this is something that I wanted to touch on first. One, it's out of context of the full conversation. Two, Argentine players leave Argentina for a lot of different reasons. They leave Argentina for better opportunities to go to Europe or to go to Europe directly. They leave Argentina for more money. They leave Argentina for more security, more stability. All of these are reasons why it happens. The best Argentine players don't play their whole career in Argentina. It doesn't happen. So, like, that comment backed up by Pity Martinez making it clear that he did not want to leave Atlanta United. And I will tell you how Juan Arango, journalist in South America and in Miami, translated it. He said, "I am not thinking about leaving Atlanta United. The coach is a good person and he will understand. I don't like what he said, but I'm not angry with him. Just that before speaking with me, he spoke to the press. I'm fine here. I want to adapt to the game here. My family is happy. I am as well. I want to stay here before I make the jump to go to Europe." That gives you, I think, his motivations. I think that explains one reason why he left Argentina. He wants to get to Europe. There wasn't a European club coming in with the offer that would get him out of River Plate. And remember, when he signed, the comments that were made in December and early January in the Argentine media by Pity Martinez, that he had a lot of respect for Atlanta. He had a lot of respect for the club, that they came in and believed in him, and they invested in him, and that shows their belief in him. All of this stuff is connected. So I know everybody jumps on the one line taking out of an interview, but I hope everybody did read the full conversation about it. And our buddy Gustavo down in Buenos Aires, he provided a translation. Juan Arango provided a translation. Felipe Cardenas translated lots of it. There were lots of different folks who translated elements of it. So I hope you put in the time a little bit to grab all of the different pieces of it. A couple other things that jumped out to me real quick before we get everybody involved. One, who he's speaking to. He's speaking to an Argentine audience, so of course he's going to be talking up River Plate. The defensive stuff, and there was a lot of stuff about, well, at River, and I think one of the commentators was talking about how he worked hard to recover the ball at River Plate, and what's the difference now. And Pity made it clear that Gallardo, the manager at River Plate, asked him to win it up high in the field, not drop and defend. And he said that's very different. He's adjusting to it. He talked about philosophical differences with Frank de Boer, just about the way they see the game, the way they think about the game. Would assume it's a lot of that. It's likely down to attacking and defending. It's down to where to start defending, those sorts of things. We've talked about it a good bit on this show, on Stoppage Time, in our pre- and post-game shows on 92.9 The Game. I think when Atlanta is at their best, they are pressing up high when they lose possession. Now, when they drop to defend, they drop to defend. Every team has to drop to defend sometimes. And how Pitti is incorporated in that is a question. But when Atlanta is playing its best, it's dominating possession. When it loses possession in the attacking half, it's fighting to win it back. And I think that's been the story all season. It's kind of went away a little bit after the international break. It took a while to get going. When it did get going, it was very effective. It's kind of disappeared a little bit because Atlanta hasn't been dominating possession except for the Montreal match and the St. Louis match, which were two teams that played very deep and gave them that possession. The other thing Pitti talked about was not liking the comments after being subbed out, and he specifically mentioned the one after being subbed out against Montreal because he talked about being a danger to the team. That's why I wonder if this was live, when it happened, how it happened, that type of stuff. And he said that he was frustrated because that wasn't said to him, it was said to the media. But to be fair about the way that those comments come out, I don't believe Frank DeBoer had a chance to talk to the team first, because it was right after the match where Frank DeBoer goes to speak to the media. He's asked a question. He answers it. Then he goes to speak to the team. Now, was there miscommunication? Was there things going on? Well, obviously something wasn't handled correctly between Pitti and Frank, according to Pitti. I think they can get on the same page. If you know much about the Dutch game, players questioning tactics, questioning philosophies, questioning anything, it's fairly common. So I don't think Frank DeBoer is shocked by a player even being very vocal with questions. That's kind of a hallmark of the Dutch game. So I think he's going to be pretty familiar with it. And I don't know if Frank was that kind of player who was very vocal in it. I don't seem to think so. But he's had teammates who has. He's been around it. It's something that is commonly talked about. So I don't think it's going to be a shock to him to have a player who is vocal. I think there are some things that need to be discussed for sure. I think, one of the biggest things is just, it's bad timing. It's bad timing for this to come out. For things to be able, they are taken out of the full context, but for them to be able to be taken out of the full context, that's something, you need to think about when you give these types of interviews. I don't think it helped Pitti with some people here who were already questioning him. Don't think it helped at all. The reaction has been pretty fascinating because it felt like it started very negative towards Pitti for speaking to an international outlet and then what he said, and then people started getting into the context, and then the reaction just seemed to go all over the place. So it's something that needs to be sorted out. I don't think it is as big of an issue as some have tried to make it out to be, because you couldn't see any hints of any of those issues on Wednesday night. That's why I'm not as concerned about it. But it is something that it's not ideal timing-wise. It's not ideal from the way it came out, and we will see what kind of an effect it has. But I'm sure you guys are going to have questions. Please tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. We will get to them. We're also previewing the weekend. We're also previewing Atlanta and Seattle. There's a lot of things to get into, but we will be getting into the questions that you guys have about this for sure. If you know me, I'm Jason. John's here. Jarrett's here. Jarrett, why don't we start with you, Jarrett? You want to give your opinion about what happened and all of this?
I just assumed there was a gas leak and everybody just started taking laughing gas and then read comments because it was all over the place. I hope you were watching it unfold last night. Like, this is going well. Great. Cool. Yeah, that's about right. Look, I mean, the context is important about it. I'm curious if like you mentioned, I'm curious when the interview was done and if, the air has been cleared between them. Because here's the thing, when you do post game down there, I don't know how much Frank is able to talk to the team right after the game, because when we do post game, we go straight down to the conference room where Frank gives his post game comments. And it generally takes him 5 or 10 minutes to get there, sometimes more. But after he's done, we go straight to the locker room. we generally don't see him in there. At least I don't remember seeing him in there. He's come in a couple times, I think, but he's not like he's consistently coming in there and then waiting for us to leave to have a team meeting. A lot of guys, they're getting dressed, they're doing their interviews with the media, and they're leaving. You can follow them outside. You can see, a guy like Nagby get dressed, slide out the door. His family's waiting for him in the hallway, and they're probably going on about their day. So it's not like you're not going to have the whole team sitting there waiting after his comments in the locker room, waiting to discuss it all. So, very curious, kind of like how it, how and when the comments might have been discussed, because I'm sure they were at some point, but I can definitely see, especially on the surface level, how everybody kind of took it and ran with it in about 3 different directions. And then,
I think
of course,
it's a kind way to put it.
3.
Yeah, and culturally things are going to be different in other countries than they are in the United States. I mean, we do deal with confrontation differently, and every country deals with confrontation differently. The Dutch, certainly. Even Argentina. You mentioned before that they wear their hearts on their sleeves, and everyone deals with their problems differently. And it's something when you have a mismatch of cultures like this, that I don't think it's a problem, but I think it's one of those things that you kind of have to work through sometimes with different individuals. Everyone's going to respond differently to things.
John, thoughts?
And I think that, to Jared's point, I think that when you have all of these different cultures and English is not a primary language, you're going to say something that you think is what you're trying to express, and then it comes out differently, and then people have to go, well, wait a minute, you're saying this when you meant something else. And so I think that that's also part of the learning curve in all of this, is understanding where someone is coming from when they say something, if English isn't their first language. Where PT on the field is concerned, it's a learning process. And if you go back and read the quotes where it's been translated, he's trying to learn things from Frank de Boert's new system from what he learned with Gallardo. And if you want to get into the discussion about Red Bulls, winning balls in the air is not PT's game. He is there to create opportunities, and that's why Frank, if I'm not mistaken, in listening back to what he said in the post-match, that was why he brought in the likes of Laurentowicz and Vasquez to help out winning the duels so PT could create. But since it wasn't happening, that's why you pulled PT and you try to create something else with substitution so you can do what you want to do. I think this is just another, I think it's a good learning opportunity for all of us when it comes to understanding the game, understanding different cultures, understanding where folks are coming from. And also when you see something, chasing after, context. I mean, look for quotes associated with it. Look for other things that are said around it, not just sitting there and seeing something at face value and going, oh, okay. And then having 3 different comments come across and 3 different points of view. So I think that this is just something that you can add to the learning experiences associated with soccer and soccer culture. And this was a big one that happened yesterday.
That's the difference about it. I mean, I think with so many different international cultures and mindsets and way the game is played, you're going to have this type of stuff happen. I think some of the reaction to it that, it's a problem and everything's going to fall apart, that feels like an overreaction to me. Is it something that you don't want to happen? Sure. It's a distraction, and people will treat it as a distraction. Is it a distraction within the group? It didn't seem like it on Wednesday. It really didn't seem like any kind of an issue on Wednesday. So, I don't know. I'll be curious to see how this plays out. Pity Martinez was scheduled for media availability today after training. Have not seen any changes to that. So, if quotes start to come out, we will keep you posted. I don't think they're going to finish training before we finish the show this morning. So, we will keep you posted with anything there, and Frank will obviously be speaking to the media as well, getting ready for the Seattle match, which we're going to get into the weekend preview in the next segment. If you have questions, though, we're going to get to them at the end of hour number 1. Mike Conti's going to join us at 10 o'clock. Doug Robertson is flying to Seattle this morning, so he will not be available for us on the show, unfortunately.
Can't talk to us from the plane?
No, John, that's rude. That's horribly awful when people do that. Don't do that, people. Don't have phone conversations on the plane. It's awful. Been around too many people who do that. It's just bad. Bad news. Don't do it. We'll get into weekend preview after this. We'll get into your Twitter thoughts. Mike will join us. We'll get into our predictions as well. Hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. Let's get into the MLS weekend preview. Lots of games, lots of really interesting ones this weekend as well. It starts tonight, D.C. and the New England Revolution. The Revs were unable to get to D.C. last night due to East Coast travel issues again. Man, these storms are kind of killing MLS's schedule at times. That's a quick, easy one, though, and they were chartering this morning, so they'll be in town ahead of the 7 o'clock kickoff. Little bit of a rivalry match here. These two teams have played quite a bit over the years. Bruce Arena returning to D.C. I'm intrigued, John. What are the juice box purveyors thinking about this one?
Full-time result, D.C. to win, plus 115. The Revs, plus 210. If you can get the draw option with the Revs, minus 150.
Well, that's not good. Like, I'm not taking that one. That's not a good one. I would kind of maybe lean towards the Revolution in regulation time. Jared, do you believe in the New England Revolution under Bruce Arena?
Yes, I do. I don't necessarily believe in Bruce Arena. I don't believe he exists, but I believe the New England Revolution under Bruce Arena getting things turned around and stabilized.
I think they can make the playoffs. It's going to be tough because of all the competition, but they can make the playoffs. DC needs a win.
I don't know that they can make the playoffs just because, the East. I think the East is going to get better over the summer. I don't know if they'll make enough of a jump and be able to get the job done, but I don't think it's going to be a reflection on them being bad. I just think the rest of the East is gonna kind of pull away a bit.
Next up, Houston hosting LAFC. The Dynamo are undefeated at home. LAFC had a difficult loss in the Open Cup on Wednesday, and they turn around and go to Houston to play tonight. They went first choice on Wednesday. I don't see that happening tonight. How big of a favorite is Houston?
Plus 115.
They're not a favorite.
Not really.
Okay.
LAFC to win. Well, I mean, LAFC to win outright plus 190. The draw option with LAFC minus 150.
The draw option, that's just dumb. We don't need those. Let's talk about Houston in this one real quick. They have an opportunity here to pick up 3 points, and if they don't, this is one where it feels like they have to go all in. And they also, we've talked about this many, many times this season. Houston plays tonight at home. Atlanta plays Sunday in Seattle, and then they play each other in Atlanta on Wednesday. Houston has an opportunity to go all out for this, win it against a team that will be somewhere between tired and second choice, and then get 2 extra days of rest and fly halfway across the country instead of all the way across the country. So the Dynamo have a little bit of an advantage here. I think they take full advantage of it, and they win in regulation against LAFC.
This might be your play.
What's that?
The total at 2.5, over minus 200.
No, I think it will be over. So that's a bad number.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a bad number. Minus 200 is a bad number. You don't want that. No. That means people think it's going to be the over.
Right. You think it's going to be the under because of the compression?
No, I think it's going to be the over. It's Houston.
All right.
It's Houston and L.A. They've combined to score 78 goals this season. There's going to be goals.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so, I think it's going to be over 2.5.
All right, Jarrett. Cali Classico, LA Galaxy, San Jose. Again, 11 o'clock tonight. Can the Quakes do it again, Jarrett?
Yeah, because despite Guillermo Barros-Schelotto and company all talking about how, we thought we were the better team. Were you, though?
They lost 3-0.
I know. I think it was Zlatan said something like, well, it was just like 2 or 3 moments of letdown. Like, every team could say that they've had 2 or 3 moments.
Man.
Yeah, we had a couple moments of a breakdown. Yeah, that's how you lose games in the sport. It's moments of breakdown. They're having some mega choice. Yeah, I think San Jose gets it done. I think they frustrate the hell out of and chip at Zlatan, and then I think they take care of business. It's not. I don't think it's going to be like the 3-0 we saw. But I think San Jose does it again, and I look forward to the comments.
San Jose has won 3 of their last 4. What do the experts think, John?
Expert Nick Alifi says it's 3-1 San Jose. Juicebox purveyors have the Galaxy at minus 110 and the Quakes at plus 250 to win full time.
That's all I'm going to say. I like that. All right. I don't know if they have a name for the Canadian Classico, Montreal and Toronto. That's Saturday at 7:30. MLS did a great piece about this rivalry. Go check it out. It's over on their YouTube channel. This is one of the best rivalries in the league, no question about it. It's one that doesn't get talked about enough. It's spicy, and it's in Montreal this time around. What are I'm really curious. What are the Juicebox purveyors saying about this one?
Montreal to win full time plus 137. Toronto FC to win full time plus 190.
So they're going heavy on the draw.
Yeah.
Huh. That's an intriguing one if you feel like either team really has the advantage, but these are 2 tough teams to predict. Montreal has lost their last 2. Toronto has not won in their last 2. They had a draw and a loss mixed in. Toronto's only won 1 of their last 6. Montreal's won 3 of their last 6. 3 wins, 3 losses. I would stay away from it with my juice boxes.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. Another one I would stay away from is Orlando hosting Columbus. Orlando didn't have to travel after the Open Cup. Columbus is still just figuring it all out. I kind of think it's going to be a draw because of a potential just letdown from Orlando after the drama of Wednesday and getting to an Open Cup semi, and Columbus just not really being good enough to take advantage. But that's a 7:30 kick Saturday. An 8 o'clock kick is Chicago hosting Cincinnati. I am not going to partake in that one. Sorry, no. Chicago and Cincinnati. I'm just going to skip that one altogether. Chicago has to win at home. That Chicago gets the Ohio double of Cincinnati and Columbus in their next two, and they need 6 points. If they don't get 6 points, blow it up and look to next year. I just don't see any way that Chicago can't.
And Veljko Paunovic starts over again.
Yeah, well, he's got a 3-year contract, so yes, he will. 8 o'clock, Minnesota hosting Dallas. This could be a sneaky good game. Minnesota scores a bunch of goals. Dallas is a much better team with all of their U20s back. What are the juice box purveyors saying about the Loons and Dallas?
Minus 134 Minnesota United to win outright. FC Dallas to win outright. Plus 300, and John Nason would like a tutorial on juice boxes.
You want to give the juice box tutorial, John?
Well, let's see. Let me go with John's question here once it loads. He says, particularly the draw result numbers, he says he grew up around 2-1, 1,000-1, 5-4 odds, etc., not the plus-minus numbers. And so that's what he's looking at.
Same thing, and I'm much more accustomed to the 2-1s and 5-1s and such. These, I mean, my basics are that, because we don't, it's not our specialty here, trust me, it's not our specialty. But the minuses are favorites. You're not going to get a big return on that. I believe you have to, it's out of 100, so if it's
in this case you'd have to bet, if you wanted Minnesota, you'd have to bet $134 to get 100.
Yes, correct. And if it's a plus, that's your underdog.
Yeah, so if you bet 100,
that's why I don't love the combination ones, the draw plus a win type of things, unless it's for a big underdog, because then that gives you a bit of a cushion.
Right.
If they pull the draw, then you can still win a little something.
And the draw option is done for those who partake in the 4 letters streak competition, because it is an option in their picking of winning streaks.
What? That you're going to confuse people completely with that. We're talking about juice boxes. That's not juice boxes. The draw plus win from a juice box perspective, I only really think it's a good play on a big underdog, because it gives you just a little bit more support where
like that Portland plus 800 that we got the other day. Yeah,
but then the draw plus win was, I think, around like 200 plus 200 or something. Yeah. So that's one that's pretty appealing. So that's a very uneducated, very do not take that to any juice box purveyors explanation.
Yes.
It's for entertainment purposes only, folks.
Entertainment purposes only. Yes, it's an exhibition, not a competition.
I like apple. I like apple juice.
Just juice boxes.
Yeah, I like apple.
Capri Sun. Capri Sun fruit punch.
Nah, it's not a box though. It's just a pouch. It's not juice pouches. It's juice boxes. I like the apple, the Mott's. Minnesota, Dallas. A lot of goals, I'm thinking, and I do think the home team gets the win here. I think Minnesota is feeling very good about themselves these days.
Over under 2.5, minus 188 for the over.
Yeah, that feels about right. Yeah, I wouldn't touch it. Yeah. Real Salt Lake hosting Philadelphia, 10 o'clock. Real Salt Lake is still that team that you just don't know what is going to show up when it comes to RSL. Philadelphia's won 3 of their last 6. They've only lost 1 of their last 6. This is another one of those for me, Jarrett, that I think Philadelphia's for real. I think they're going to be there at the end of the season in the Eastern Conference. Their front office thinks that Jim Curtin should continue to be there. They've signed him to a contract extension, which is good to see. This is another one of those kind of statement games for the Union. If they can go to Utah and get 3 points, you have to start believing in Philadelphia, and they have to start being talked about with the rest of the powers in the East.
Philadelphia just keeps finding a way to get it done. It's been really impressive. It just keeps happening. Every time I think they're not going to find a way, or even when it's not pretty, they've been finding a way to get it done, and I continue to be impressed. I think they can go out there and get 3 points, and it doesn't have to be pretty. Even if they go out there and get a point, Philadelphia is just kind of doing enough to keep their nose in front right now. At some point, they are going to have to put the pedal down, though, and do more.
Something that's interesting, this series matchup since Philadelphia came into the league at Real Salt Lake, RSL's won 3 times, Philly's won twice. No draws. That's a pretty good record on the road in Utah for the Union. I think they get 3 points. I do. I think they're the better team. What are the juice boxes saying?
Juice boxes are leaning draw.
Yeah.
Real Salt Lake plus
safe.
125, Philadelphia plus 210.
Plus 210. That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good number. Kind of like Philadelphia in that one. Vancouver and Sporting Kansas City. Kansas City finally gets a win. They have won 2 of their last 4, but they've got 2 losses mixed in. Vancouver is just like win, draw, loss, and bad loss. Bad loss at LAFC, 6-1. They're at home. They're going to have to bounce back a little bit here, but I just don't think they're that good. They're 4-8-8. Kansas City 5-7-7 with far more challenges for Kansas City. I do feel like it's going to be another draw with 2 teams that have played to a combined 15 draws. The draw has to be the heavy option here.
It is. Vancouver plus 190 to win full-time, Sporting plus 130.
So Sporting is a road favorite. But I don't believe in Vancouver enough for that plus 190. I just don't.
Yeah, by
home
$60.
underdogs are generally intriguing. Not the White
Not this one
as a home underdog. No. Should be a fun one late night Saturday night. Portland hosting Colorado. Portland comes in off the high of advancing to the Open Cup semis, winning in L.A. Colorado is going to be trying to bounce back after their first loss under Connor Casey. Is the Connor Casey effect still being felt by the Rapids? What do the juice boxes say?
Portland minus 225, Colorado plus 550. Merritt Paulson doesn't get to host the U.S. Open Cup final, so he gets this one instead.
Yeah, I don't think he cares about this one. I don't know what he's complaining about with not hosting the Open Cup final. He pitched a fit about a blind draw. That makes no sense. Because what was it before? You just buy the game. You just buy the game. You just say, yeah, we'll give you whatever you want us to give you so we can have the game. And then, no, that's not what we want. It's a blind draw. I mean, I don't know what the problem was with it. If you want to have it at a neutral site, well, you got to find a neutral site that can sell it and make money on it, and that wasn't the case before, so it's a blind draw. I don't really know what you can say. Those comments blew my mind. I really like Colorado, but not in this one. I don't see it. Jarrett, what do you think about the Rapids heading to Portland?
I mean, I don't know when the Connor Casey effect does die, because at some point it's going to have to, because I think there's just like
Ask
the talent.
Ole Solskjaer.
Like, I think at some point the talent is going to, like, you're going to start playing, like, the teams that you're losing to, that talent that they have over you right now is going to win out. And I think this Rapids team is laying a good foundation. Even if Connor Casey isn't the guy next year, you're laying a positive foundation going forward. I just don't want anything to do with Portland right now. Just kind of where it's at. I don't know that they're the class. I just don't want anything to do with Portland. I feel like that's like grabbing a briar patch with a bare hand right now.
I think Portland is an MLS Cup contender. And the comments about, it's such a great thing that Portland knocked out LAFC because that clears the road in the Open Cup. No, it doesn't. No. Portland is very, very good. They were in MLS Cup last year, by the way. I think we've forgotten some of that. They did add Brian Fernandez, who seems to score in just about every match he plays. That's another big thing. And they started the whole season on the road. So their record, not quite what you would expect, but they've only had a couple of home games. So Portland will be there with LA in the Western Conference at the end. I think they will be there maybe 1-2. I think those are the two best teams out west. Timbers get the win here. They're just too strong for Colorado. Final game of the weekend after Atlanta and Seattle. It is the Hudson River Derby. It is the New York Red Bulls hosting NYCFC. Red Bulls did not play midweek. NYCFC did and lost in 120 minutes in penalties in Orlando. They're beat up. They're missing players. Why are you so sad about NYC losing?
No. Just the way that they lost. That's what I was.
They lost in penalties.
On. Yeah.
So
with some of the most unsure penalty kick taking that we've seen this week.
Tom Dwyer was in that conversation as well.
Correct.
None of that matters. What matters is NYC's banged up and beat up and missing players, and they had to go 120 minutes in Central Florida on Wednesday. I don't know how they're going to have the legs to run with the Red Bulls here, and I'm really curious to see if Dome Tarrant can have them come in and be a little negative. I think they need to be in this one. I think NYC needs to come in and flip their 3-4-3 or 4-3-3 into a 5-3-2 or 5-4-1 and sit and play long and kind of manage the workload in this one. I don't know if it's in their nature, though. So Red Bulls have to be a pretty big home favorite here, right?
Even money, plus 100, NYCFC plus 260.
That's a little surprising that Red Bulls are not a bigger home favorite, not with the situation going on. That's a pretty good play, I would think. Interesting. Jarrett, what do you think about Hudson River Derby this week?
It's one of those things that, like with all good rivalries, where I'm inclined to give the cliche, throw everything out. You got to throw everything out completely because it is a rivalry, but man, it does line up in a way that should favor Red Bulls. But Dome Tarrant losing really, the second game of the year for them last time out? Like, I could see a world in which they just kind of climb back on the horse even after everything that happened in Orlando and somehow salvaging a draw in this game and it getting, like, ugly. Because I just imagine Red Bull still running very hot after everything that happened in Atlanta. And that emotion just carrying over here. I think you get back Kaku. I don't think he got a suspension beyond that one game. So I could just see it just boiling over, running really hot, getting really intense. And then when the dust settles, New York City somehow pulling a draw out of this and everybody going home very angry.
I think if NYC was healthier, I could totally get with you there, but I think they'll try to do it. I just don't think they have enough in the tank. They're going to be beat up even more after 120 minutes in Orlando, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions on the lineup. The Red Bulls, if you're a Red Bulls fan, you have to expect a win here. And if the Red Bulls are a contender in the East, this is the kind of game that they should be licking their chops on and winning. Because you're getting a tired opponent coming into your house in a rivalry game that you're fresh for. You didn't play midweek. So that should be a huge help to you, and I think the Red Bulls take care of business and get the win. Make sure that you are setting your fantasy lineups. We'll give you a couple fantasy tips. You can still get into the second half of the season. Go to Jason Wright, AGEN on Twitter, Jason Wright Agency on Facebook for the instructions on how to get into the league. Your lineups get set. You have to make sure when that game kicks off that if you want a player in that game, they are in that game. If you don't want them in, you got to pull them out. So you got to check some of these lineups because I think there's some teams with some interesting lineup questions, especially the ones coming off of Open Cup action in the midweek. What is their lineup going to look like in the second game of the week? So make sure you're following Jason Wright Agency on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks to Jason for supporting our fantasy league. We'll give you a couple tips at the end. We'll take a look at prize picks as well and give you our thoughts on that. But up next, your somewhat overreaction Friday takes or underreaction or on par reactions. We'll get into all of that right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. July 12th edition of Soccer Down here. A somewhat overreaction Friday edition, a weekend preview edition. We'll get deeper into Atlanta and Seattle here in just a bit. Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game joins us at 10 o'clock. But Mike chimes in on Twitter, and we'll get more information from him on the interview that happened about 20 minutes ago. Carlos Bocanegra was on with John Fricke and Hugh Douglas and said this morning that he spoke with Frank DeBoer and Pity Martinez and, quote, "There's nothing to it. Both guys are over it." And then Carlos also said, not direct quote, but paraphrasing, that the press in Argentina is trying to start a fire. That sounds accurate.
Yeah.
That sounds like
hey, it's Friday.
modus operandi. That's any day that ends in a Y. There are fires being started in the Argentine press. One other bit before we get into the tweets. My sources in Scotland, because I now have sources in Scotland. I can claim this. My sources tell me, one, we know that John Gallagher was a man of the match for Aberdeen yesterday in their Europa League qualifier. And he was very impressive. He's played as a right back. He's played on the wing. He also, in the match yesterday, played as a central midfielder, 90 minutes. Nobody could argue with the man of the match performance. Everyone feels if he carries on like this that he'd be a great signing on a longer deal. So Aberdeen's very happy with John Gallagher.
Nice. Salute. Nicely done out of the blocks.
Yes. I hope they do well in Europa League. Yeah. Rangers took care of their first leg as well. Celtic took care of their first leg. On Aberdeen to do well. I want to see more from the Scottish group in European play.
Yep, hopefully. And I'll be curious to see how it goes down with Gallagher. And, look, I think the biggest thing that we've talked about consistently is just there's not really anywhere for him to break in right now with Atlanta United. So at some point you do have to make decisions about, I think one decision was it was best for him to go out on loan to get more time and get more challenge, and he's getting that, which is a great thing for him long term. And if it's something where Atlanta United can keep rights, great. Maybe he comes back and fights his way in. If not, maybe it is the best for everyone if he's able to move, if he's found a place that he's successful in. So you never know how these things go. There are lots of twists and turns that could take over the next few weeks and months when it comes to John Gallagher. Playing centrally, I didn't really expect that. And that's another spot that's a crowded position for Atlanta United. So Keep an eye on Mr. Gallagher over at Aberdeen, but let's keep an eye on the Twitters right now. What are the peeps saying this morning, John?
Michael Ruiz early this morning wanted to know if anything happened last night. He says,
I didn't hear
que loco que está? How about we talk about Russ and James back together in Houston in the secret NBA fifth hour?
Yeah, that whole thing was nuts. The NBA just keeps on giving right about now. It's good times.
And now Sam Presti's trying to figure out a way to turn Chris Paul to Miami for something other than
he needs
that contract.
5 million draft picks because that's the way to build in this league, and it looks like he might pull it off. All right, let's get to the real stuff.
Yeah. Daniel Price about PT. Really hope these comments and stuff involving PT's being taken way out of context. It's just inventing frustrations at his current form. I like PT, but the interview's doing him no favors in the public eye. Want to build a goodwill with the fans, not break it.
Yeah, see, that's what's hard because, one, the interview is given in Spanish, and the Atlanta United fan base, large portions of it do not speak Spanish. So that's one element. Things were grabbed onto out of the interview that were not the full context of the interview. I mean, he was pretty clear in saying he wanted it to work here and he wants to get to Europe in the long run. He doesn't want to go back to River right now. I think it's obvious that when he says if it was up to him, he could stay in River. For me, that's the same type of thing as somebody saying, and this is what Argentine soccer's kind of turned into. It's like somebody saying if it was up to them, they could stay and play at their college forever as a football player. It doesn't happen. It's kind of the same thing for Argentine top players. You can't stay in Argentina and play full time. You just can't. If you're a top player and you want to continue to progress, you got to go at some point. And what's really interesting is now it's not just a wait for a club in Europe to come get you. It's, hey, you can go to the United States and make more money and play in a league that in some ways is a higher profile league than the Argentine Superliga. And that's become a new thing. And it's something I think we'll see more of for players in Barco's situation, which is a teenage talent who is looking to make that jump to the elite level. A player younger in their 20s like Miguel Almiron, and a player who's in their mid-20s like Pity Martinez. So it's going to happen more and more. If everybody's on the same page with it, as Carlos Bocanegra said, I think it is a whole lot of nothing. I do. The Argentine media is going to be looking for things to talk about. This definitely gives them something to talk about. I want to see how it affects the team, if it has any effect. And according to Carlos, it doesn't, and everybody's over it. We'll have to see.
Ricky Ricardo, I don't think it's a big deal what PT said. People reminisce on things they used to do or have all the time. Cough, Yamil Assad, cough, close parentheses. And
Yes.
that feels like what this is when talking about River. The biggest concern to me is if it is true that in speaking to him about these things, not only doing it in the media, then I have a tremendous problem with that. I know I have nothing to back that up with. I hope that isn't the case, but optically, it's a horrible look that's a horrible look. # communication is key in every relationship.
What part did he have a problem with? I didn't quite understand how that flowed.
Hang on. Biggest concern to me is that if it's true that Frank isn't speaking to him about these things and only doing it in the media, then I have a tremendous problem with that. I have nothing to back. He says I have nothing to back it up with, and hope that isn't the case.
For sure. They've talked about having meetings as a team and players and technical staff, and they talk on the training ground, and there's been talk about Frank being around more than Tata was. So I think the issue with the comment, that's another one. It feels overblown to me. I could be wrong. I can understand how Pity would take offense. I don't think he knew about it, like he said, until I think the next evening after he had trained the next day. One, I think it shows you that Pity Martinez is listening to what is being said in Atlanta about Pity. And Frank said this right after the game before he could talk to the players. I didn't think it was out of line then. Again, I do think there's a bit of a context issue with the way he said it, because it wasn't just that he said Pity's making bad decisions and is dangerous to the team. He talked about when the team is pushed forward and they're exposed, Pitti was making bad decisions and being dangerous to the team, which from a soccer aspect is 100% true. So it feels like some overreaction from Pitti on it, but yeah, it's a comment made immediately after the match to the media before your manager speaks to you. So it's going to come out that way. Could it have maybe been a little softer for Pitti's sake? I guess. But I think, as Pitti said, consistently through the interview, there is a bit of an adjustment to a different type of manager, a different personality. He had really, outside of he has some disagreements with Frank philosophically about the game. Okay, that's pretty typical for players. And he didn't like how this one went down. He did stress how he thinks Frank's a good guy. He likes Frank. That's why I don't feel like this is a big deal. That's normally, and Jarrett, correct me if I'm wrong, because we've seen players and coaches and players and managers clash over things in every sport and every team. It happens all the time. When the players go out of their way to talk about how they feel good about the manager, usually that means it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think that's the take of it as well, is that it's, I guess when you bookend it with that, I think it is meant as I took it as this is different. I miss being where I was, but this is where I need to be right now for me. And while we don't always agree, it's not going to torpedo this season. And I don't think it will. So disagreements happen, and like I said before, every culture is different. Not every culture you're going to have those conversations about, what is or is not happening in the public eye.
It seemed pretty level-headed. I mean, it didn't seem like, from the bits I've seen, the bits I've heard, the translated bits I've read to make sure I'm understanding it as best as I can, it didn't seem like it was out of control in any way. It's not like an interview that was made out of anger. It didn't feel like that. So I don't know. As our buddy Nick Alifi says, when Kaká talked about Milan when he went to Real Madrid, he talked about how he loved Milan, would love to return one day, made a decision that was best for the club, yada, yada, yada. Let's also think about that aspect of it, that last aspect. When Pitti came to Atlanta, he made River Plate a lot of money. That's also a big part of it. If you love the club, if you have that emotional feeling for the club, and Barco talked about this with Independiente as well, you want to do right by the club. Tito Villalba could have left on a free before he came to Atlanta. He could have left on a free. He signed a new deal with San Lorenzo knowing that he was going to leave. The club knew he was going to leave, so the club could make some money on a transfer deal. If you love the club, you understand this element of it. Yeah, you'd love to be there. You'd love to play there. That you're comfortable there. But it's also a business. When you are an asset and you can help the club make more money in these situations, because you're talking about clubs and players that have a different feeling. We've talked about the passion in Argentina a lot when it came to the Copa Libertadores, and it was kind of funny. I was watching one of the documentaries about the Libertadores final from last year as all this was breaking last night. It was kind of a weird juxtaposition, but you have that feeling, that emotional connection to the club, and you want it to be better. And when you are somebody who can bring $15 million into the club because you're a great player and somebody else wants to purchase you, that happens. And that's okay, and you're going to be okay with it in the long run. So that plays into it as well. It's not I don't think this is an easy situation for everyone to understand every aspect of it. And I think sometimes things are getting pulled out of it and then stretched and twisted and turned, and it's getting complicated. But if the manager and the player are on the same page, and they sure did look it on Wednesday, I think it's going to end up being okay. Let's get one more tweet before we move on to the top of the hour, John.
Brian Wallace with nothing having to do with PT.
Oh.
Curious how the three of you feel, and Jared, I guess let me start with you on this one. Curious how the three of you feel about the use of the F word in Atlanta United culture and chants. Could you see it having an adverse effect in attendance in the future? I overheard several families sitting near to me that were upset with the chants. "We are the A" is the only chant I sing.
I can't believe we're having to have this conversation in 2019, the year of our Lord. But here we are.
Anno Domini.
It's just not necessary. You get large groups of people together, though, and they do stuff like that. We also had the Mexican goal kick chant early in the existence as well. When you get large groups of people together, they're going wild out sometimes, and sometimes it's going to be hard to kind of nip that thing in the bud. It's not ideal, I don't think, but I mean, at the same time, I don't think it's going to be necessarily flipping a switch to stop it if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible to just stop it without stopping lots of great elements of fan culture. Let me ask you, Jarrett, as a young dad. I mean, does it bother you with Ivy being in the stands when she hears it and she'll understand it in a year or two? Is that something you worry about?
In a sense, yeah. There's also a lot of conversation that's going to have to take place about what is acceptable and is not acceptable, because it won't be the only place where you'll hear that sort of language.
That's incredibly true, yes.
And you're going to have to understand in all environments that you are in, you're going to hear things that you as a 3, 4, 5-year-old do not need to repeat. Some of those things may come out of your parents' mouths too, by the way.
Well, yeah. I wasn't going to say that.
No, I mean, but it's true. It's absolutely true. And it's going to be important to have those conversations. So, yeah. It's not, like I said, it's not ideal, especially when you bring a kid to a game. But there's some things that you, as an individual, cannot control if you're going to go to those games. And you can be a part of the group of people trying to put a stop to it. And I think that's the best you can do at this point right now. Is if you don't care for it, is to be part of the people trying to put a stop to it, because I don't think you can do it by yourself, but I also think you need to have those conversations.
I mean, and I feel a little differently about it. I don't know if being part of a group to put a stop to it is the best way to handle it. For me, it would be being part of a group that tries to get something else going instead. I'm not usually, in a position to hear much of it. Honestly, we don't catch everything, especially like individual words and chants. We don't catch all of that in the radio booth. But being at Kennesaw, I was a little surprised. Not so much at oh no, the words being said. I don't really care, because I'm more of the if you have kids there, you do have to have those conversations with them and those sorts of things. I was a little surprised at how much it was, because I didn't really ever have that feeling that the chants that were being done in Kennesaw, I didn't really have the feeling that those were the usual ones and they were being done all the time. It felt repetitive just because those are chants that I don't think your average fan knows. Now, there was one that I think I have seen people talk about how it's been getting traction as of late, but it's a chant that I think a lot of different groups do. So maybe that's why it's getting some traction. And that's the more challenging aspect of the supporters group culture for me, is that you should be trying to come up with things that get beyond the supporter section. And I think some of these types of chants, especially the ones that are more recycled from England, I don't know if your casual fan's going to grab them. Gwen's trying to chant along, but I don't know what she's saying. I don't know if the casual fan grabs onto those and knows it and is really interested, and then you add this element to it. I love the culture at the Benz, because when I turn on a game afterwards and I hear it, it feels like Atlanta in the sense that it doesn't sound like it does in Portland or Seattle or D.C. or New York or wherever else. When it's chants that are done in every other venue, you lose that a little bit. So I'm not as worried about the language just as the repetition. I think it's cool when there's a more varied sense of it, but that's also very hard to achieve, because to get it past the 500 or 1,000 hardcore people who are all in and will chant anything that is chanted. It has to be something that can catch, and that's difficult to do. So it is a battle. It's not something that happens overnight. It's something for me that I don't really pass judgment on in that sense, but I like the variety of different chants. I don't like repetition of the same chant over and over and over again. Even though it might start to get a little bit of a reaction, I do think that can be a bit of a turnoff. So I don't know. There's not a right answer for it. To be 100% blunt about it, I don't think there's a right answer about language, no language. Is it an easy chant for everybody to grab onto? Is it something difficult that's complex and they need to have a lyric sheet in front of them? I don't know. That stuff's above my pay grade. But the Kennesaw experience, the repetition surprised me. That was the only thing that really jumped out to me. Let's take a break. Let's get Mike Conti on the line. Let's talk more about what Carlos Bocanegra had to say on 92.9 The Game this morning, and let's look ahead to Seattle on Sunday. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, SDH, July 12th. A pseudo-overreaction Friday after yesterday.
Ain't no pseudo about it. People have been overreacting.
People, we react. It's okay. Maybe sometimes overreact too much. But Mike Conti's somebody who doesn't overreact, and he's with us.
Especially about Penn State.
Especially about soccer. Do you ever listen to me call a game?
Especially
against Red Bulls? Oh, yeah. I overreact all the time.
I've heard a little bit of this. Carlos Bocanegra, I don't think, overreacted this morning, and you had a chance to catch the whole interview with John and Hugh. We shared your tweet. What else did Carlos have to say about the situation?
That's pretty much it. I mean, he blames the media in Argentina for trying to start something. He was very, very clear that he felt, and I know you guys have gotten into this, that Pitty's remarks are being taken out of context, that hot snippets were being kind of pushed on Twitter without the rest of the sentence. And this isn't Carlos who said it, but I'll just add for my own personal context. I mean, there was one where Pitty said, if it were me, I would rather be in River. But he also said in the same sentence that he has no plans to leave Atlanta. But that portion is not included in the tweet. I think that's something that Carlos is very, very frustrated about. But
Yes.
he also said it, as you guys, if you kind of repeated my tweet, that he met with Frank DeBoer this morning. He met with Pity Martinez this morning. Carlos said there is frustration. He did say that, but he also said that, and paraphrasing, that this is an issue that's been squashed. And Pity's going to speak to the local media today. Frank's going to speak to the local media. And as far as Carlos is concerned, he's kind of downplaying this as being a major thing.
And let's talk about PT on the pitch and what happened midweek against St. Louis FC. And I think that when you look at what happened there as Atlanta advances to the semis and blood feud coming up in August, that you saw a lot of what a lot of folks were anticipating when PT got here. And the goal, while somewhat similar to the goal he had against it or Orlando, there was a lot of ability behind it. And I think a lot of folks got to see what you can have with a PT Martinez in-house.
Yeah, I mean, no question. And it felt like the work rate was a lot better, too, on Wednesday, which I know some people have latched on to. Now, one thing that I'm not fully clear on is this interview that Pitti gave in Argentina. Did that occur yesterday, or did it occur prior to Wednesday's match?
I feel like it was prior, because
I do too.
The comment that he made about his dislike for what Frank said to the media was referring back to the Montreal game.
Yes. It had nothing to do with anything said on Sunday. Remarks that were misinterpreted, by the way, from Sunday. But here's where I'm stuck on this. If Pitti had that kind of game on Wednesday and then he did the interview yesterday, I'm baffled because it felt like Pitti was in a much, much better place mentally Wednesday than he may have been, say, this time last week. And, everything that we've heard this week is that there was, a very good week of training, a good amount of effort on Wednesday, and everything's kind of in a good place right now. So that's why when these comments came out last night, it felt a little bit odd to me that why are we hearing this now? Why are we hearing this now? We didn't hear this a couple days ago when the false report about the loan came out. Which
we're
I guess
hearing it now because it's 2 weeks away from the Argentine season starting, and the media needs things to talk about when it comes to River Plate.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing that goes to Carlos's point about the media in Argentina trying to start a fire. In my opinion, this was needless. It didn't need to get to this point. It is unfortunate it got to this point. This is a distraction that is unnecessary. Hopefully Carlos is correct that this is something that they can just move on from it. And these things happen in pro sports every day. All three of you have been around pro sports long enough to know that instances like this happen all the time in every major sport. It happens all across the globe in soccer. This is a thing that comes with professional athletes and big personalities spending every minute of every day together. These things do happen. It's not a big deal. I do think it was unnecessary. That bothers me. That aspect of it bothers me. But if it's been put behind them, and what we saw Wednesday was evidence of, the new Pitti and Frank dynamic going forward, then I think we're in a good spot, don't you? Because Pitti played probably his best match in an Atlanta United shirt on Wednesday, or one of them.
And speaking of guys making their showings in an Atlanta United shirt, Emerson got to play. Looked pretty good doing it. What was your takeaway from the new guy in the midfield and what has now become, at times in the past, I feel like Atlanta United's midfield could get a little thin. It's crowded right now.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm going to be very curious to see how hard they go with Heinemann over the next couple weeks because of this match compression that you have suddenly, again, with more Open Cup matches now. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. Perhaps man of the match caliber performance on Wednesday. He looked like he was just a perfect fit from the jump, and this is after a very limited amount of time training with the first team. I know he's been around and you can communicate and do certain things, but to actually get that on the field work it's been limited, and it looks seamless to me. And this is very, very important because you do worry going forward about the amount of running, the amount of work that Nagbe has to put in. I like the fact that Heineman can be a 6 if he needs to. He can be an 8 if he needs to. He can be a 10, as he was on Wednesday. I thought he was great in that role, too. I don't necessarily think that Heineman is coming in to take anyone's playing time. I don't feel that way at all. I think it might make it more complicated for some of your reserve midfielders who don't typically get a lot of minutes with the first team to get in. But that's okay. You're bringing in someone of Heineman's quality to be part of the mix, and that's a good thing for the club. I'll be anxious to see if he's in the 11 on Sunday. Wouldn't surprise me if he was. And if he is, it wouldn't surprise me if he's in a role other than the number 10. And that will be fun to see, too, to see that dynamism in his game kind of on display for us in an MLS match.
I think what Emerson Hyndman gives you and what we saw on Wednesday is more of a comfort level in playing 3 true central midfielders like we saw there with Nagbe, Remedi, Hyndman. Gressel can factor into that, but he's a far more attack-minded option in that group. But when you do that, you are more secure in a lot of ways centrally. You can play Pitti out wide, protect him a little bit more from a defensive standpoint. You can play Barco or Merrim or Pereira or Gressel on the other side and get different things going. It gives you a different look that even with Gressel centrally, with either Remedi or Nagbe or Jeff mixed into that, I don't think you had the same dynamic central midfield look as now you have a greater opportunity to use with Hyndman in the mix.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, and again, this is based on a very small sample size from Wednesday night. I didn't see him with Hibs this year, and I didn't really see him much with Bournemouth, but he doesn't appear to be a guy who's going to put the ball in danger. He's someone who looks like he is responsible, that he's not going to take chances. He's not going to do anything risky. You're not going to have that head and hands turnover with him that you can occasionally have elsewhere. It's a good fit. It's a really, really good fit for this club. And I think it's a very, very savvy move by Darren and Carlos in the front office, again, who continue to nail it with these midseason pickups. They've certainly done so with Justin Merrim. They certainly did so last year with Eric Remedi. And again, sample size being small, it looks like they're off to a really good start with Emerson Hyndman.
I was going to ask you about Justin Merrim. It's like you're reading my notes, Mike, when it comes to the question and answer session. But you have a guy like Merrim go out there again and work on the left. And it was with a variety of guys. There were times when he would be integrating with Hyndman, sometimes with Shea, sometimes with Pitti, sometimes with Remedi and Nagbe. But once again, Justin Merrim shows that you're getting absolute pickups of the year for the loose change and lint that you have in your pocket. And Merrim continues to be in a big groove right now.
I love the connection he's got with Shea, too. I mean, that's something that we really saw again on Wednesday. And Jason, help me out. Did Merrim and Shea ever play together before? Were they together in Orlando? I don't think they were they?
No, they weren't. Shea was in Vancouver by that point, and they never crossed paths before.
That's what I thought. I mean, it's pretty remarkable because it feels like they're really clicking in a way where they do have some prior chemistry or some prior experience playing with each other. Justin Merrim is going to absolutely stay in the lineup when Barco comes back. I feel very, very confident about that. I think Frank's made it pretty clear in his selections, with limited exception. I mean, he does deviate from this occasionally, but I think Frank has made it pretty clear with his selections that he rides the hot hand until their legs fall off. And Justin Merrim right now is in an incredibly good run of form, and it would be a disservice to the team to take him out right now as well as he's playing. I think when Barco comes back, and I'm still not thinking it's going to be Wednesday. I know the club has said there's a chance of that. I just don't know how you can get match fit in such a short amount of time. But when Barca comes back, whether it's against DC or LAFC, I think now you look at your attacking group and the number of different options that you have, and Heineman's even part of that too. It's going to be fun to watch to see what develops here, and if there's a new society that develops with maybe a Miram Heineman Gressel combination with Joseph as the striker. Really, really impressed with Justin Miram. I think on top of it too, he just seems like such a good guy, doesn't he? He seems like he's really liking it here. He's already paying tributes to the 17s. I rode down on the elevator with him in Chicago last Wednesday, and in that very, longer than usual elevator ride, he just seems like a really good guy, asking how your day is and how things are going, and someone who truly seems to be content with being here. And by the way, that's one thing that stood out to me with Heineman, where I think he got a question, I don't know if it was Wednesday or if it was the day before, where he was asked about, if he would maybe one day want to go back to Europe. And paraphrasing, he said, well, I'm kind of happy with being in Atlanta. If you've got the chance to play for Atlanta, that's a good situation. That's a good spot to be in. I feel like Miram is kind of in that same spot mentally right now, and the team is benefiting from it.
Yeah, you touched on Breck Shea, and I want to keep doing that because I need more Breck Shea appreciation in my day. Because
absolutely,
he's just slotted in a situation I think kind of not identical to what Chris McCann had last year, where he played a lot not because Tata intended to play him a lot, but because he had to. I think you got that with Breck Shea, where you expected George Bello to try and grab the starting spot, and it hasn't happened. And Breck Shea, when he's been in there, just seems to be, as the season goes on, just getting the job done and just doing his job.
Yeah, spot on, Jared. I mean, Breck Shea, the plan was never for him to come in here and start a double-digit amount of games. That was never the plan. And as Bello has had setback after setback after setback, slowly but surely, Breck Shea becomes very vital and much more solid. And it's funny how we don't hear people complaining about a cross that he might put out of bounds anymore, or being dispossessed in the attacking third every now and then. We don't hear that anymore. I think people have come to really appreciate Breck Shea's consistency and his steadiness. And yeah, he got off to a rough start this season. The whole team did. The whole team's in much better form now than they were in March. Breck Shea's part of that. But I just like how professional that Breck Shea has been. He never once complained about kind of being foisted into this role of an everyday starter. He's never complained about the way that he was treated by fans at the beginning of the season. He's been a solid pro. He's gone out, he's done his job, and he's gotten better. And I think we've seen flashes of brilliance from Breck Shea, going back to the second match of the year, the home leg against Herediana. We know what he's capable of doing. So I absolutely appreciate what Breck Shea has done. And the good news is, Bello's injury is the kind of injury where if you rush him back and you bring him back too soon and he has another setback, then you go all the way back to square one and he's missing for a few more months. Shea being steady enough at left wing back has bought George Bello time to get this rehab and recovery right. And for someone as young as George Bello, that is incredibly important. So I'll lead that Breck Shea tribute bandwagon every day and twice on Sunday, Jared. I think he's done a tremendous job this year. I like rooting for the underdog sometimes. I don't think it's fair to have him in that underdog role. He has not been treated fairly at times, but I'm glad to see now that a lot of that has cooled down and people are starting to really acknowledge Breck for what he is right now, which is a solid pro.
So let's get into Seattle. Brian Schmetzer yesterday said that Atlanta had learned a lot of things from Seattle.
Do you really want to ask me about that?
No, I was actually going to take it to something that maybe Atlanta did learn from Seattle. South American players that have affection for their former club. Nicolas Ladero. There's been ongoing conversations about Ladero and Boca Juniors. Reportedly, Ladero told his agent to work a deal to bring him back. Ladero did not dispute that claim after practice on Thursday. He said, it's always, this is through translation, he said, it's always good when the other club is talking about me. It's very important. This makes me more comfortable to show my football in every training session or every game. I want to give you something that Lodero said earlier this year, because it's come up, it feels like, I think March of 2018, there were rumors about going back to Boca. Mm-hmm. January of this year, there were rumors about going back to Boca. Garth Lagerwey said that there hadn't been any offers for Lodero in the last transfer window. He told Sounder at Heart, the SB Nation blog, Lodero told them earlier this year, he said, earlier this year there were several reports of a possible to return to Boca. To be honest, it made me very happy. I think Boca is a wonderful team to whom you cannot say no, and there is always a desire to play there again because I have great affection for that fan base, as well as for the club and its magnitude. He told MLSsoccer.com, without a doubt, if the rumors were true, I would leave. One would really want to go to Boca, especially since it's such a big club. Atlanta's had to deal with this with Pity Martinez now, and Nicholas Lodero has been dealing with this with Seattle, but we've watched Lodero consistently deliver for the Sounders, and he is the most dangerous player they have, and he's a player Atlanta has to worry about on Sunday, whether he wants to go to Boca Juniors or loves Boca or not.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I do think there is one major difference in that Lodero has not said that he wants to stay in America and wants to stay in Seattle, which was the second part, reportedly, of what I don't speak Spanish.
He did say he did say that I'm happy here. I've enjoyed Seattle with my family, but in football, you never know what will happen in the end.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't feel like closing the door to me. But in any event, Lodero's their best player. He's the guy who scares me the most for Sunday. No question about it. I'm going to be curious to see. Seattle had a lot of players for the U.S. men's national team that are back with them now. But, you know, are they counting on Jordan Morris for a full 90? You know, are they counting on the guys who had to play in Gold Cup as recently as last Sunday for a full 90? They were affected probably more acutely than any other club in MLS by Gold Cup absences, and they're wobbling right now, but they've been very, very, very good at home. 7-0-2, and that's why if Atlanta United can get a point out of this, it's a big, big win. You run to the charter and get back home for that Houston match if you can get a point. But I think Schmetzer's got some decisions to make. I think it's a little bit complicated because even though they've been back training with the club all week, and it's not like they're coming back from Poland or even Brazil or anything like that. They're coming back from Chicago. It's tough. It's tough to kind of pick up where you left off. So if you're not counting on those Gold Cup players to give you much on Sunday, then Lodero absolutely becomes the focal point of what Seattle wants to do. And he's the guy that Atlanta United's going to have to be the most concerned with.
Let me ask you one
I would also
before we finish up with you, Mike. Sorry, we could keep you all morning, but you have work to do. You have to let Atlanta know about sports news all the time.
Yeah, I guess that's work.
Yeah, Open Cup draw yesterday. Atlanta has learned that they will be headed to Orlando, but if they advance, they will be hosting the final. Does that change the Open Cup's level of importance to you?
No, I think it was important to begin with, and I think the selection on Wednesday proved that. It certainly makes it very intriguing now. I mean, all you have to do is beat a club you've never lost to in 6 or 7 tries to host the U.S. Open Cup final. My question would be, do you go 70,000 for the Open Cup final, or do you keep it low cap? No, it's important no matter what. It is a direct path in the CONCACAF Champions League. It is a major trophy. It would have been important, very important, if that final match were played in Minnesota or Portland. It makes it fun for the fans, but I don't think it changes the approach for Frank or the technical staff at all.
Yeah, it's a little tricky with the trip to Orlando on a Tuesday. It's ahead of the trip to the match with NYC that's at home. And you're at home the weekend before, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
You are. Yeah. Okay. You go Galaxy home on a Saturday, Orlando road on a Tuesday. I'm really not that worried about it. In fact, I wonder if the club pushed for it because it gives you the extra day to travel back on Wednesday and get ready for NYC. It's such a short trip anyway. Atlanta United could, in theory, go down the day of the game. You are allowed to charter for U.S. Open Cup. It doesn't count against your MLS charter limit. U.S. Soccer would reimburse a portion of that expense. Atlanta United, I could absolutely see a scenario where they could charter out of, that airport up in Marietta or whatever on a 30-seat jet, go down there the day of the game, get it done, and come right back. And I don't think it really hurts you that much.
No, it's interesting situation going to Orlando for their biggest game in club history, and you have a chance if you win to get a cup final.
It is, but I'm not confident they're going to sell it out. I mean, you'd like to think they will.
They've got
to. I don't. But I don't have the faith that they're going to do it. I don't have that faith. I hope they prove me wrong, but I mean the attendance they've gotten consistently in big matches and in U.S. men's national team matches down there speaks for itself. Their crowd on Wednesday wasn't, I'm not going to say embarrassing. It's tough on a Wednesday night and it's hot out, but that wasn't a great crowd at all. So this is a real test of that Orlando fan base, in my opinion. This should absolutely be a sellout. It's a massive match. They've never been this close to a major trophy ever. We will see. I hope I'm proven wrong.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope it's a great atmosphere because I think it's going to be a great match on the field with it being just such an important one to get to a cup final. Mike, I will see you at the airport tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I'm going to download some Teen Mom episodes. Got a 5-hour flight, so let's get that on the internet.
So if you have any Teen Mom questions, throw them to Mike Conti 99. You'll be able to answer them after this.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, Mike. Good. We're going to take a quick break. We'll get into more of your questions right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. SDH, July 12th. No Doug Robertson today. He's on a plane heading to Seattle. I believe he is in the air now. So he has given his prediction for the match on Sunday. Let's go ahead and get into that. If you have not voted yet, you can over at JBailey86. The Bailey Daily poll is up for your picks for this match. I don't know. Do we have the latest standings overall for the cup and all that such stuff?
I think we have Copa Especial. I don't think we have Copa.
Okay. Well, we'll get into standings next week, but let's get into our predictions for this, and we'll head back into the Twitter timeline. Jarrett, you want to kick us off? Atlanta, Seattle.
I think it's it's a game that it's such a tough game after a midweek to go across the country to play a Seattle team that can be tough, very tough to play in their own house. I think I don't want to call it like where you punt it and you do a full rotation, but I think you place a higher priority when you can come back Wednesday. And I know you'll be on shorter rest than Houston, but Houston hasn't traveled well since Jesus wore sandals. So I'd rather play my odds and maybe rest a guy or two for this game, maybe bring him off the bench if things are looking good. But I'm putting more of my eggs in the Houston basket. I think Atlanta loses this game 2-1 in Seattle.
Okay. John, what do you think?
I had it as a 1-1 draw. I figured that Atlanta would come out, obviously, with some different faces because of what happened midweek. Julian had a cameo, so I would anticipate he would start. I know that Frank has said that pretty much everybody's available. But just the idea of having to go from one end of the country to the other, short rest, no matter who you put out there, I figure Atlanta gets one. I think Joseph gets one. And then I think that Seattle gets one probably from either Ladero or Rui Diaz. I go 1-1 draw.
You and Doug are on the same page with the 1-1 draw. I don't think there's going to be as much rotation now. I think Frank's made it pretty clear. Look, he's not a rotating kind of manager. I think he's going to go as first choice as he can. Now, rotation and moving guys in and out of the lineup can be different things. Like Gressel starting, I don't think would be a shock here at all. Heineman, you're going to see how he bounces back after his first start since December. Joseph, I think, is fine. I mean, if you wanted to have him come off the bench, if it's just a workload situation, okay, that wouldn't be a massive shock for me. Pereira starting for Merrim. Again, Pereira started. So I don't think you're going to turn to guys who haven't been playing much, would be the way I would put it. Seattle, they're getting everybody back. Rui Diaz returned to the team yesterday for training after taking Peru all the way to the Copa America final. You know, where's his head at? Is he going to be ready to step straight in? He played a lot of minutes, so is he going to be ready to go? Questions about that. Nicholas Ladero is obviously the talisman for Seattle. You're going to have to deal with him. I would assume that Eric Remedi would be in charge of that one. Would make a lot of sense to me if Remedi is going to be trying to deal with Ladero, not quite in a man-marking situation, but fairly close. Jovan Jones has been away from training for Seattle this week, birth of his new baby boy. Is he going to be back and ready to roll? If not, what does the left side look like? You get Christian Roldan back with Seattle this weekend as well. That'll help make them better, but how quick does he get back into the flow? Seattle does have some questions, but this is a game where I feel like Seattle really needs it more because of what Atlanta has coming up. Atlanta doesn't want to burn, I think, the Houston and DC home games to chase points in a very difficult place to get them. Seattle's only had 2 matches this season where they didn't pull maximum points, and those were still draws. It's going to be very, very difficult for Atlanta to get anything out of this. I wonder, with Seattle looking at a couple things now, they're feeling the pressure of Minnesota 2 points behind them. Same number of games. Dallas 3 points back. They've played one more match. San Jose is only 4 points back of Seattle. I don't know if you can consider Houston in there with their road form. I think Houston you have to look at a little differently. The Galaxy are 2 points ahead of Seattle, but we've seen the Galaxy slip up in the last couple of months. LAFC right now is out of touching distance. Seattle's got some pressure on them. I don't think this is an easy game for Seattle, but I think they're strong enough here to get the point. I think it's going to be a 2-2. It's going to be a little wilder than John and Doug think. I still worry about Atlanta defensively at times, more so on set pieces and in those types of moments than from the run of play. It just hasn't been as good defensively as it's needed to be, and I don't think this is a game where Atlanta will dominate possession to be able to take that pressure off of the defense. The defense has to get, and Atlanta has to get overall, back to where they were in May, where in general they were getting 55% or more of the possession. That was taking more of the pressure off the defense. You're still having some breakdowns that shouldn't be happening, and that's something to worry about. Set pieces I worry about as well. Seattle's pretty good there. Ladero delivers well there. So 2-2 is my pick.
Nick is saying 2-0 Seattle.
Nick always does that. Nick plays the heel on his predictions.
Yeah, it's about right. So
there's
I was
a lot
trying
of
to
back
figure
and
out.
forth. One thing that I'm seeing now about Pity Martinez and defense and this type of stuff. If you paid attention to what the comments that were said were, I think the conversation has gotten so all over the place at the moment. And Joe Patrick's going back and forth with people now, and everybody's going back and forth with everybody at the moment. I thought Pity was kind of clear on this from the conversation yesterday. Yes, he had to play defense at River Plate, but it was high up the field when the ball turned over. It wasn't making a 60-yard run back to defend deep in his own half. Those are two completely different things. And I've seen the questions about it too, and I think everybody's trying to lump defense into one big giant bucket. It's not. Defending high up the field when you lose possession is defending high up the field when you lose possession. Making a 60-yard run back to defend a winger or an outside back who's made a run, that's not what Pity's going to do, and it's not what he did at River Plate. What he did was defend high up the field when possession turned over. And he should do that here. That's a completely different conversation. I think what he was talking about was Frank wants to defend from a deeper position, a deeper line. That's different for him. It's much more nuanced than just River didn't ask him to play defense. Well, no, not exactly. And Atlanta's asking him to play defense everywhere. And no, not exactly. It's much more nuanced than that. I hope we can get to that next level of the conversation.
I was trying to figure out, while you were discussing Atlanta and Seattle, what a starting 11 might look like and what the bench might look like.
I don't think it's that crazy. It's not like, what's the starting 11 look like? Oh, my gosh, I have no idea. It could be anything. Not in a weird way. I think it's...
No.
It's... Okay, what was the 18 on Wednesday? I don't think you're going to get any additions to that dramatically. So I think you can safely guess LGP and Miles together at center back, Escobar at right back. Is Shea ready to go again, or do you turn to Parkhurst, or do you turn to Ambrose? All of those are possibilities that we've seen. None of them are weird. I think Remedi plays. I think Nagbe plays.
I think Hyman plays.
The question is, where do you play Hyman if he plays? Or does Gressel come into a central role? Because I think Gressel will play. If he plays centrally instead of Hyman, wouldn't be a shock. Hyman, first game with the team. Then Pity, I think, plays. Is it central or is it wide? I would put him wide. I think he's been better wide.
Yeah.
He's been best on the right side wide because of that connection with Escobar.
Yeah.
Is it Pereira or Merrim, or is it Gressel wide because you go with the three central and Joseph up top? I mean, there's some questions, but they're not weird ones.
No. I was literally trying to figure out. Yeah, I was trying to figure out who the 18th name would be. That's where it was.
Well, I think when we're worrying about the 18th name, you don't have to give yourself a headache about it because they're probably not going to play anyway.
Right. So Frank says first choice, so that's where you roll.
I think the 18th name could be Andrew Carlton. Wouldn't be a shock. He's been in 18s recently anyway. So if somebody's got to replace Lorenowitz in the 18, could be Andrew.
And let's see. Katie Weaver asks if, do we need a break from talking Pity trademark?
No, we can talk whatever.
Well, she says, in case you need a break, some interesting nuggets in the ESPN player poll and the player poll. And the question, which away game do you dread the most and why, was the question that she brought up in screen cap.
Yes, I saw that.
New England far and away at 23%.
Yeah, they weren't talking about the intimidating atmosphere. They were talking about the stadium, the trip as a whole, all of that. So it's a unique one. I mean, from my perspective, it's kind of nice staying at the hotel right there where you can just walk to the stadium. That's kind of cool. I like it. There's not really much to do there because it's like a strip mall next to the stadium.
Yeah.
I guess they're trying to go kind of Atlantic Station-esque with it, but
Trader Joe's Bass Pro Shops.
Well, I like Trader Joe's. I don't think there's a Trader Joe's there because that would have actually been good, but it felt very generic. I mean, when one of the hubs of the sports bar side of things used to be Toby Keith's I Love This Bar, I think that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, I Love This Bar?
It was something like that. It was Toby Keith's place, and I think it was I Love This Bar. Well, it closed, so there's nothing to even get about. It closed. It had been there for a long time. What was interesting about that place was that there were reports in the Boston Globe that Toby Keith's bar at Foxborough was I'm trying to remember exactly how it was worded. I think in cases involving DUI, it was the place mentioned the most as the last stop for people who were arrested for DUI.
Oh, that's tremendous.
Yeah.
I didn't know Toby Keith had a chain. That was why I was going,
Yeah. Well, he at least did. I don't know if he still does in other locations. We stopped there last year because it was one of the few places open for lunch when we got there, and it was about as generic as you would expect.
Literally, it is called the Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill.
Yeah. I mean,
first of all, those questions were just infuriating. I don't care what your cheat day meal is.
Those are the ones I didn't care about. Some of it was good, but there's some that's just like, really?
Yeah, some of it was fine. Like, tell me who's overpaid. Tell me who's underpaid. Do it anonymously. Give us the dirt. Give us the Flashback Friday topics.
What player have you wanted to kick the most?
Yes. Who's the dirtiest player in the league?
What player have you kicked the most? Who has
there
the
are
worst
3
taste
locations
in
left.
Who talks the most trash on the field?
Yeah.
What stadium has the worst pregame music? Give me that one.
There you go. I don't want to know about superheroes.
Chicago was really bad.
Okay, here's the most earth-shattering and insightful question they seem to have had on this entire thing. Do MLS players prefer Drake or Kanye?
That's just dumb.
That's earth-shattering.
That's just dumb. Anyway, there were a few good things out of the poll, that's for sure. But not as much as there could have been.
Atlanta United had the second highest rated kit, according to the players. Best kit in MLS, LAFC was first, and then Atlanta United was second.
Okay. The LAFC one's kind of plain. The black and gold's a good combo, but it's kind of plain.
Yes.
So the Revolution today headed to D.C. to play at 7 o'clock at Audi Field. Remember, their flight was canceled last night. 11:30 scheduled charter. It's like an hour-plus flight. They're scheduled to arrive at 12:45. And, okay, you get the normal type of reaction for people saying stuff. Oh, MLS is stupid. Flights were canceled, folks. Major League Soccer can't control Mother Nature. When there's lightning and flights are canceled,
you ain't going.
They're canceled. Doesn't matter if you chartered or not. Just stop with the nonsense about blaming everything on the MLS office. Weather's weather. There's nothing you can do. There's plenty of things to blame the MLS office about. Pick and choose. When all you do is yell and yell and yell about the MLS office, you kind of miss the point when there actually is something to say. This is not MLS's fault. And for people who have asked, I don't think it affects their number of charters available because this is extenuating circumstances. That has generally been how MLS has handled these things. But, blame MLS for lightning and thunderstorms. Go ahead. Have fun.
Yes. Will Palmer. With the way PT's season has gone and his age, will this affect his potential future in Europe?
Right now, yeah. I mean, he hasn't come here and been on fire in this league, so I don't think you have European suitors who are more interested in him than they were before. That's okay. It's to me, it's just back to the basics of if he wants to make that jump. And one of the other things from the interview yesterday that we haven't touched on is that he talked about the Argentine national team, and Gallardo would be a great fit for that if there are changes made, and he'd love to play for Gallardo with Argentina, but he's got to be better, he's got to work harder, he's got to get these things there, he's got to perform better. Yes. That's what has to happen. If European clubs are going to be interested in Pitti, he has to play better here to get their interest. So right now, no. I think the thing about Pitti, and he's a unique player. He's just such a unique player. There's not an easy comparison for him. The goal he scored on Wednesday shows some of that. There's not many players who could do what Pitti Martinez did there. And he honestly made it look really easy. And I think that's why it hasn't been talked about a ton as a great goal. That's a great goal. There just aren't many players with the technique to be able to do that. He has a very high confidence in his technique, sometimes too much. He tried a play at midfield right around the midfield stripe that I think he was trying to kind of flick it, not a backheel flick, but flick it with his off foot to the other side to spring either Heinemann or Remedi, and he mishit it and gave it away and gave St. Louis a chance to break. That's the trade-off you get for players like this. You want him to feel free to try stuff because that's how he plays his best. You want him to be in positions where he tries stuff to where it doesn't hurt the team. As DeBoer said, you don't want to be a danger to the team. You can't try stuff in those moments. I think Pitti's still finding that balance of now, okay, he's being asked to do more things from a tactical perspective than he has in the past. He's got to find that balance. But you don't want him to lose who he is because that's what he brings to the table. He's not Ezequiel Barco, in that Barco maybe is a better dribbler than Pitti. Maybe not in the very tight spaces. Barco doesn't have the same technique. Barco gives you more athleticism. Pitti's not the most athletic guy. Pitti's capable of moments of magic that just very few players are. He's got to give you those. If he doesn't, then the deficiencies in his game stand out. And that was the point I was trying to make on Stoppage Time this week, is that when Pitti is playing well and he is scoring goals and assisting on goals and creating chances and having magical moments in matches, nobody's talking about him tracking back 40 yards to defend. When he's not playing well, then those moments stand out. So he has to play well at the things he does well. I think teams with Pitti in them and teams with players like Pitti have to put those players in positions to be successful and accentuate their strengths and hide their deficiencies. So for Pitti to get that European interest and to get back into the Argentina national team, he's got to play better and he's got to deliver more in the final third. Don't think it's been as bad as everybody would try to lead you to believe, but it hasn't been to the level it needs to be for him.
Joe Bost's reactions, he says, this seems mostly a PR issue. PT seems more introverted, where Miggy endeared himself to the 17s, always smiling. PT rarely smiles, doesn't seem to want to engage. Timing for this sucks. Maybe get PT out to do a couple of events for autographs.
Everybody's different about how they deal with media and how they want to deal with media and how they deal with interaction. Joseph is a very unique animal when it comes to talking to people, for instance. Miguel, always more so talkative. Julian Gressel, basically the archetype at this point of just interactivity with the fan base and kind of putting everything back out in the open. I also think social media plays a role into it, where nowadays players have social media that kind of let you into their lives. I think it kind of humanizes things a bit, and they're not as what's the word I'm looking for here? They're not as mysterious and on high. It feels more normal with pro athletes that, like, you're reminded, like, still a person who has a personality that might be different than someone else's and might not be comfortable and is trying to figure out how they want to be. Now, at some point you're going to have to do something that you may not be comfortable with, which in PT's case is going to be today talking to the media. He may not love doing it, but I think it would help kind of ease things over a bit to hear it straight from him instead of coming out of Argentina with stuff. But everybody's going to be different, and I think sometimes you just got to kind of roll with it and deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, he spoke to Fox Sports Argentina. You got to remember, Pitti spent his time in Buenos Aires, period. That's the only place he's played professionally. So he has a comfort level with the media there and the way that they do business. And remember, he spoke earlier this year about being uncomfortable with the media here and something that happened one time after a game. So he probably is rather guarded about it. That's okay. I don't think there's anything horribly wrong with it. I agree with Joe. I think this is more of a PR issue than an issue between Pitti and Frank and the club at this point, as Carlos said to 92.9 The Game this morning. It's more of a PR issue. I mean, you wish that it didn't come out this way. I don't know if Pitti would be comfortable going out and doing a bunch of public appearances either. I think he is an introverted guy. I think Miggy's an introverted guy, but Miggy gives you a different public face. It's not like Miggy was out speaking a ton either. And when he would speak to the media, I don't think he really gave you a ton of things to talk about. But the way he plays on the field gives you the impression that he is an outgoing personality. I don't think he really was. Joseph's just a unique personality, and he has a ton of personality on the field, but it's unique. Pitti, it's interesting because I think he plays with personality. I mean, he has a personality on the field, but it's a weird one because it's not smiling and huge big moments like you'd get with Miguel on a 50-yard run where he outruns everybody. It's not Joseph where he's going to take his shirt off after a goal and pose and do those things. Pitti, what we've seen the most has been, when something's gone wrong, frustration. I think when he's playing well, you'll get some glimpses into his personality a little bit more in the way he plays and the way he expresses himself on the field.
Oh, and sometimes artists are the most quiet and introverted folks out there. That they're not extroverted, and then they want to create, and then they want to go back and try to figure out the next creation. They're not the most gregarious types. They'd rather be in the studio and draw. They'd rather mock something out on their architecture board. That's just how they are sometimes.
Okay, so we're getting a couple things from Marietta right now. Felipe Cardenas tweeted that Frank de Boer said Pitti will start versus Seattle. And Christopher Meister said that, in paraphrasing, Frank said he would prefer the Pitti-Martinez drama to stay in the locker room, but he mostly deflected to on-field discussion when asked about his relationship with the player. He did say he had levied the criticisms in question to Pitti before taking them to the press. So that's the latest. More will be popping up from Marietta. Make sure you're following Felipe and Chris. I know they're there. I don't know if Joe Patrick is there. I'm assuming yes, but I'm not 100% sure. Doug is not. Doug is on a plane flying to Seattle. So if you're looking for the latest out of Marietta, and we'll give you more as we finish up. Jimmy Vance asked this, and John, I want to get your opinion, and then Jarrett, you. Does Atlanta United return the favor and bunker in Seattle as the Sounders did last year to get a result?
I don't think that they would bunker. I think that I think you're going to try to get something done early, considering you're coming off of what happened midweek, and then I think that you settle into a match. I don't think that, for me, settling is not the same as bunkering, and I think that it may turn into, if something doesn't happen early, it might be more of a gauge your opponent, try to create a turnover and counter. It might be more defend and counter as the match goes along if nothing happens early. I don't think bunkering is going to happen where you have an apology after the fact. I don't see it quite happening that way.
Jarrett, what do you think?
God, that would be amazing, though. If Atlanta just went in there and played negative, and Frank de Boer just came out and basically gave the verbatim answer about, we're sorry, we didn't play. Sorry about that. Guess we'll do it next time.
We got a game on Wednesday. We didn't feel like playing today.
Yeah. Just do that and see what Schmetzer does. No, I think it could be a situation not dissimilar to Vancouver earlier this year, where you were on short rest, you went out there, you got an early goal through a penalty, and then you go back to that game, Atlanta probably could have scored 3 or 4 in that game. Keeper stood on his head up there in Vancouver for a couple of moments. I could see it being a game where if Atlanta's able to get an early goal, they kind of shut it down and just defend and try and get the counter when they can, and then we get a number of tweets and complaints across social media about how Atlanta just ran out time and time wasted and all that jazz and didn't really
Atlanta didn't play.
Exactly the same thing that everyone has done in Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the last 2+ years. But when Atlanta does it, it's a problem. No, it's not. It's not a problem. If Atlanta goes in there and gets an early goal and shuts it down and goes full CONCACAF, cool. God knows a lot of teams have come into any stadium on the road, cross-country, for short week. Anyone's going to do it. So I don't know if they bunker, but I think if they get that early goal, I think they CONCACAF it up a little. Or CONMEBOL it up a little. Depends on who's on the field.
Yeah, somewhere in between. Could be a little of both. Joe Patrick is in Marietta, and he tweeted, Frank de Boer just spoke. I asked if he regretted being as frank as he's been in post-match pressers regarding Pitty's performances. And Joe said that Frank said he doesn't regret that and that he discussed his thoughts with Pitty prior to speaking to the media. So good clarification from everybody there in Marietta. I'm sure we'll get some more as we finish up. What else do we have on the Twitters?
Katie Weaver, back to chanting and such. She said actually it was an issue with her at the Women's World Cup viewing. She loved the environment of watching at the perch, appreciated the American Outlaw vibe, but literally every chant was laden with F-bombs. She says, it's just lazy. I had to apologize to my 6-year-old who just wanted to watch the game with some atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's I guess my reaction to it more than anything is just it is lazy. It can definitely be lazy. I don't love it, but I don't really care if there's a bad word in a chant. The repetition is what bugged me in Kennesaw, just because it was the same chants and all of them had it over and over again. That's not what I've generally heard. I chalk it up, though, to a different group, a different environment, a different group of people who were there. You didn't really have a capo stand exactly. There's all kinds of stuff to it. I think generally we get more variety in the chants, and when you get the variety, you're not getting all of the ones with an F-bomb in it, so it just has a different feel to it. I don't know. I think there are things to think about when you get into this, and the ones that keep coming back to me as you're creating a culture is you do want it to be, something that the majority of people can grab onto. I think the best supporters groups in Atlanta has done a really good job of this overall. Come up with things that do involve the overall venue and not just the supporters side of it. And when it has the most effect is when it carries over. And the We Are the A chant, the ATL Viking clap, the just Atlanta United call and response, the very simple ones like that do. Does that mean that's all you do? No, because those are very simple and very basic. You need to mix those in, and you need to mix them in a fair bit. And if you can create more that have that type of effect, even better. But there are things that a smaller group can do and lead and have a cool effect. Just some of the very simple, like, I don't even know if they necessarily had many words to it. Some of the more Latin with the drums, back and forth, that stuff's cool. And I enjoy that a lot. So It is what it is. Nobody's going to like every aspect of a crowd performance. Nobody likes every song that a band sings at a show. You know, it's okay. But repetition would be the thing that I think you don't want to see, like you saw in Kennesaw. But again, I think there are extenuating circumstances that created some of that.
John Nason, how long until the Open Cup moves the final to a weekend with no competition from the regular season? Perhaps a regular date each year, Labor Day Sunday, although that appears to be a FIFA window.
Yeah, that's going to be a FIFA window, but the idea of moving it to a Sunday where there's no other game would be cool. You see in other leagues around the world where their schedule is more fluid, and they will move league games to accommodate for teams who reach a League Cup final, for example, in England. Now, the FA Cup final, it's always the week after the regular season ends, right?
Yeah, it is.
You can't do that because you have playoffs, and you don't want it to distract from that. You do want it to be earlier. So I would say you create a Sunday that is your Open Cup final date, and you move the matches for the teams in the final. You move them to another week in the schedule. I would be okay with making that concession. And I think U.S. Soccer, just as a whole, not the organization, is at a point where fan bases can handle that. I mean, out of the teams that you have left, I think Atlanta's fan base could handle a game being moved to a Wednesday or even to a weekend during the international break. If you had to sacrifice and play on a weekend in that international break, you're going to miss some players, but to have a cup final on a weekend, yeah, I think you could make that work. I think Portland could make that work. I think Minnesota could make that work. I think Orlando probably could make that work. But, yeah, that'd be really cool. I'd love to see it on a Sunday by itself. There's no other league matches on that Sunday. It is a day that is on national TV. It's celebrated. It's a big deal. That would be super cool if you could get there. And I don't think they're that far off from it.
All right, get out your Prize Picks material. Daniel Price has gone Prize Picks berserk this morning.
Uh-oh.
He says that for the match itself out west, he says he's going goalless draw or maybe 1-0 Atlanta if we get lucky. But he has also posted a lot of his analysis when it comes to Prize Picks for the weekend.
Okay, well, go check out Daniel's analysis on Prize Picks. He is becoming an expert in this field. The board is up for the weekend. There's a lot of different options, and you've got players that start tonight in it. Go check it out over at myprizepicks.com. If you haven't signed up, you can sign up with the code SDH. You get 25% of your initial deposit up to $1,000 matched. So if you deposit enough to get $1,000 match, cool. You've got a lot more money than I do. But you can get that benefit. You can also get a free $25 two-pick play as well to get you started. A free roll where you can pick two at a $25 value.
And if you only get one of those, you still get 10.
You still get $10 back. So it is very much a free roll. Remember the scoring. It's 5 points for a goal. It's 3 points for an assist. It's 1 point for a shot, 1 point for a shot on goal, and -1 for a yellow, -2 for a red card. Looking at the board for the first time, let's see what jumps out to you. Carlos Heel at 3 points tonight in D.C. for the Revs. He hasn't been performing great as of late. Pozuelo is a 6.5 for Toronto against Montreal on the road. Safir Taider's at a 5. That's an intriguing over number for me. Mauro Manotas at a 5 for the Dynamo. That's an intriguing over number for me. Carlos Vela at a 12 against Houston on short rest.
Yeah.
Looking at the under.
That is Daniel.
CJ Sapong, Chicago, 3.5 against Cincinnati. Looking at it over. Zlatan, 10 against the Quakes. I think the last couple times I've played it, I think I've went Zlatan under the last 3 times, and I got 2 of the 3 right. He went over on the last one. So we'll see how Jarrett's Quakes do there. Wondolowski's at a 4.5 if you're thinking about a Quake pick.
Over.
I don't know if I'd be yelling about it, but maybe. I'm not completely sold.
I'd take Zlatan under, Wando over.
Maybe. I'm not all the way there. Valeri at a 5 against Colorado. Ladero at a 5 for Seattle. Joseph at a 9 for Atlanta. That's when you get to more than 8.5. I'm like, that's high. That's a goal and a couple more shots on goal. Maybe. Royers at a 5.5 for the Red Bulls. Tajori Shradi's at a 4 for NYC. Okay. So my picks off the cuff that I like are over for Manotas for Houston, under for Vela for LAFC, over for Sapong for Chicago, and over for Royer for the Red Bulls. Those are the ones that I feel the best about.
Daniel's got Rooney over, Carlos Gil under, Vela under, Zlatan under.
Very negative. Carlos Gil under. He's at a 3. I don't know about that one. Go to myprizepicks.com. You can check it out on the site. You can also download the Prize Picks app for Android and iOS. So go check your app store to get the My Prize Picks app. And thanks to Prize Picks for their support of the show. The NWSL announced their broadcast team for the ESPN matches, and our friend Jen Hildreth will be on the call for these. She will work most of the games, including one of the semifinals and the final. Glenn Davis, another friend of the show, will be another play-by-play announcer for NWSL on ESPN. Allie Wagner will be a game analyst. Angela Hucleys will be another analyst as well. Marissa Pilla, who does great work out of the Philadelphia market, she will be on as a sideline reporter. And Dalen Cuff, who was involved in a lot of different aspects of the NWSL on Lifetime broadcasts, he will be involved as well. The broadcasts start on Sunday, 3 o'clock, with Portland versus Orlando as the first match that they will have. So check out NWSL on ESPN. Lots of big things going on around NWSL this weekend. U.S. women's national team players are not returning to the field this weekend. They're returning to the field next weekend, but there's a lot of different clubs that are, and they probably should. Pedialyte. Yeah. Lots of Pedialyte.
Yes.
Lots and lots of Pedialyte.
Carbs.
Cases of Pedialyte.
If they just stop drinking, the cumulative hangover might actually kill some of them.
No, you got to taper. You got to taper off.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, this is a very much. You're right. This is a very much a tapering situation.
Yes, they are tapering off of the champagne and or Coors Light and or Budweiser.
And there's nothing good about champagne drunk either.
Oh. No, not at all. It's a bad time. But crazy week, and it was a lot of fun following all of it. And thanks to all of them for sharing so much of it behind the scenes. That's what was so cool about it. Ashlyn Harris needs a career. I don't know exactly what aspect of social media broadcast she needs to be in, because there's some outlets that would probably need to stay far away. But Ashlyn Harris is a great follow on Instagram. So many of the others are too. Rose Lavelle's hilarious on Twitter and Instagram. It was very cool to see so many, aspects of it that would normally, you wouldn't have that glimpse into it. And that's cool for them to be willing to share that, because not every athlete is, not every team is, and they really open the door and let you see every aspect of what their insane last few days have been. So credit to them for everything that they did. Credit to, I think, Megan Rapinoe for what she had to say at the parade in New York, and the way she delivered it off the cuff. Very difficult to do, and it's a message that I don't care how you feel about her or things she said in the past. Her message in New York City was very strong, and I think it's one that should be heard, and hopefully it will be. I think the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to get a deal done correctly here with the women's national team, and I hope that it is a deal that is a long-term deal for the good of the game, not just a deal for the women's national team pool right now. I hope that there are some bigger picture things that are looked at for the health of the NWSL, for the game as a whole, broadening the player pool a bit, figuring out some things that are very tricky and not easy. And I hope that they can all come together and get it done, because it's a distraction the longer it carries on without being done. And I thought Megan's comments about Carlos Cordero specifically were very intelligently delivered in terms of playing politics with it, but also I felt like they were very genuine. I thought she was very... it went out of her way to praise him and his support of them at the World Cup. So I hope they can all come together and get this done, because it will eliminate that distraction and then focus things on NWSL. And look, Grant Wall posted something this week. Others have posted things. The NWSL, the management agreement that U.S. Soccer has with the NWSL does expire at the end of the year. They manage a lot of the administrative side of it. Things have got to get figured out. It is a pivotal time for the NWSL because the competition has increased around the world. There are things that have to get done within the league today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not in a month, not next year, now. And U.S. Soccer is part of that. The players are part of that. Media is part of that. It's a very important time for the professional women's club game in the United States, and I really hope they can get all these things right. One aspect of it that does need to get solved sooner rather than later is that collective bargaining agreement with the national team players, and then everything else can work off of that, I think. So keep an eye on all of it. We'll keep you posted with things as they develop. Another women's note is the BBC has already picked up the rights to the Women's European Championships in 2021 in England. They had such great success with ratings for this World Cup, and not just the England matches, by the way, but they've already jumped out and grabbed those Euro 2021 rights. I'll be curious to see who picks them up in the United States, because I would like to watch those, for sure. And one contract note before we finish up on the Twitter timeline, Kendall Waston signed a contract extension with FC Cincinnati. No surprise there. He's a player you got to lock up.
Especially with Cincinnati needing to get a lot of stuff figured out. Good to have.
Yeah, he's one that you want to keep around.
Yes, no doubt. So we got games tonight. Fix your fantasy teams appropriately. See if you can beat me, which won't take a whole lot of effort. And once again, thanks to Jason Wright for sponsoring the league, sponsoring all of our stuff. Same to Appolinsky and Associates. Don't forget to go to the Bailey Daily poll and vote on what you think is going to happen this weekend, although bunkering is not an option in the Bailey Daily. But J Bailey 86, and vote on that poll. Thanks to Steve Appolinsky and Associates for also being a sponsor for the show and everything that he does and everything Jason Wright does to help us keep the lights on a daily basis.
Yes. Joe Bost was very happy to hear Jarrett Smith on air these last couple of days.
Don't get used to it.
Wow.
Sorry. Sorry, Joe. It is today. Like I just go back to I go back to obeying only the bat signal after today.
Yes, the bat signal when it comes to Scotland, or jumping on soccer over there and saying like a sentence and then disappearing.
Yeah. Oh, in San Jose.
Yeah, the San Jose bat signal does work as well. Yeah, no, it's been fun. Jarrett Smith is at times the Pity Martinez of soccer down here. The genius is hard to quantify at times.
Don't know how to take that.
Now you've got that to live. Now you have that to live up to.
Well,
just don't go talking to Fox Sports Argentina about the show.
Oh, I'm going to go talk to Fox Sports Argentina on principle.
I love my time at Peachtree Post.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, what's the plans for the weekend?
I'm on a plane tomorrow afternoon, and we'll be headed to Seattle, get there tomorrow night, and then we have the match at 3:55, which is a weird time. We will start our pregame show at 3:15 on 92.9 The Game, and kickoff, I don't think it's actually 3:55. I think it's probably like 4:01 or 4:02 or something for TV. We'll have the match. We'll have the full-time report. You can also listen on the Atlanta United app and the radio.com app. Full-time report will be shorter, we think. I don't have the itinerary just yet because we're coming back on the charter with the team, so they can get back and prepare for Houston on Wednesday. Monday's show is, let's say at this point, the start time is TBD because we don't know what time getting back. Doing some rough calculations, I think we could be landing anywhere between 1 and 2:30 in the morning on Monday. And I'll probably not sleep much on the plane because it's almost impossible for me to do that. So I don't know about a 9 o'clock start time on Monday morning. I'm just saying. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. I might sleep through that alarm.
Atlanta United 2 at Montclair this weekend, 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon to take on Red Bulls 2 in the USL Championship.
Yes. Lots of games around all of your places to watch games, and it starts tonight. ESPN DC
Plus
and New England, ESPN Plus. Make sure you're checking out NWSL on ESPN News on Sunday, also on Yahoo Sports. All the things, and I'm just going to go ahead and make an executive decision. We will have a super show Monday evening, so I don't pass out or anything.
Die.
So,
we can't have that.
6 o'clock Monday evening, Super Show, Overreaction Monday. Nick Leafy will be joining us as well. We will talk a little soccer over there, but we'll talk a lot of Atlanta and Seattle. So, there you go. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jarrett, for jumping in with us these last couple days.
Absolutely.
Just don't go talking to Fox Sports Argentina. That's all I'm saying.
Just talk transfer rumors with them. I want to see if I can start a knife fight on Fox Sports Argentina.
Well, I see. I don't get to see the shows on Fox Sports Argentina on TIC. If a knife fight broke out, I don't think I'd be that surprised. I don't know if it would get to that point because I think it'd just be punches and kicks. I don't think there would be knives needed. But yeah.
So you're saying it wouldn't be like Jim Rome and Jim Everett?
No, it'd
Chris
be,
Everett?
Yes. I mean,
yeah.
Well, there wasn't a knife fight in that one. I mean, you're saying it wouldn't be like that. No, I think it would be like that. I think there'd be lots of shoving and pushing and kicking, and probably like glasses of water thrown and things because I think they usually have water in front of them because they yell a lot, so they need that water to keep the pipes clean. So, yeah, you'll have a lot of that, but that'd be about it. So, Jarrett, don't go spreading bad rumors about soccer down here. We appreciate it. And we'll be back on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.